In almost all high-octane action-adventure gaming franchises that revel in the arcane or the concept of supernatural powers fueled by the existence of a heaven or hell, the term Prince of Darkness is thrown around quite a bit. For Castlevania, it is Dracula, and for Devil May Cry, it is King Mundus. While the second season of the Netflix series doesn't exactly paint Mundus as the typical Prince of Darkness, he has actually been the overarching antagonist within the games. At least Dracula's contempt for humanity could be justified by his grief of losing his wife to human folly, but for Mundus, it is just his overzealous ambition. Given that the ending of Season 2 has already set up the King of Makai as our next big villain, now is the best time for us to discuss just how horrifying the antics of the Devil King is in the gaming franchise. So, without wasting another moment, let's get right to it.
You are weaker.
How did the Netflix show handle Demon King Mundus? If you have watched the latest season or played any of the DMC games, you understand just how powerful Mundus is. Even if he barely had a lot of screen time in Season 2 with the whole Arius the Sorcerer trying to raise Argosax, the god of chaos, to overtake both Makai and Earth shebang, the last episode does end with Mundus being set up as one of the major villains for the upcoming season. For those unaware, Mundus is an enormous godlike demon whose body looks as though it has been carved entirely from gray stone. He has glowing purple eyes, a gemstone embedded in the middle of his forehead, along with long hair and a beard that looks like weathered rock. His most striking feature is the massive hollow sphere in the center of his chest, which glows with a strange purple light from within. Despite his colossal size, Mundus is capable of flying with the help of his gigantic feathered wings that extend from his back, giving him an almost divine yet terrifying sense of aura. Up until now, in the Netflix adaptation, Mundus is portrayed as a deeply cold and calculated ruler who came to despise the chaos and brutality that defined Argosax's reign. After spending centuries serving Argosax as a loyal high priest, he eventually grew disgusted by the endless bloodshed and senseless cruelty surrounding his master. That experience shaped Mundus's entire worldview, leading him to value order, discipline, and absolute control above everything else. To maintain that control, Mundus was willing to manipulate, deceive, or kill anyone without hesitation. He saw emotions as a dangerous weakness and spent years trying to force that belief onto Virgil after bringing him to Makai, because in Mundus's eyes, compassion, attachment, and vulnerability only led to failure. At his core, Mundus is a totalitarian tyrant who is obsessed with control. He cannot tolerate unpredictability or anything that exists outside of his influence, which is why he reacts so violently to rebellion and defiance. Now, initially in the first season, we only heard of him as the all-powerful King of Makai who wanted to expand his reign beyond the confines of the demon realm and set his sights on Earth, until Dark Knight Sparta saved humans by betraying. However, the latest season reveals that Mundus was once one of Argosax's most devoted followers, serving the god of chaos for thousands or maybe even millions of years as both a high priest and loyal servant. But over time, he became horrified by the endless sacrifices that were carried out in Argosax's name, as Mundus watched countless Makaians die to sustain his master's rule. Eventually, Mundus and several other priests turned against Argosax and eventually succeeded in overthrowing him after staging an ambush. However, before his defeat, Argosax managed to preserve himself by transferring his soul and essence into the arcanes, so he could someday rise again. With Argosax gone, Mundus took control of Makai and crowned himself its new ruler. But instead of bringing freedom, his reign became just as oppressive due to his paranoia. He built a brutal empire founded on slavery, fear, and absolute control. Mundus was always on edge as he too believed someone would rise up to usurp him like he did with Argosax, and that fear dictated his entire rule. Under Mundus's rule, Makai itself began to decay as its atmosphere grew increasingly toxic, until large parts of the demon world became barely livable even for demons themselves. Now, after Sparta turned against him, Mundus's empire eventually began to fall apart. After Sparta rebelled, he abandoned Makai and escaped to Earth, but not before he sealed the portal connecting the human world to the demon realm. To lock the barrier permanently, he used a magical amulet that was later split into two halves and passed down to his twin sons, Dante and Virgil. Following this, Mundus was determined to break the seal and regain access to Earth, so he sent demons to recover the two halves of the amulet. However, during the attack, Sparta's human wife Ava was killed and Virgil was taken alongside his piece of the amulet. But Dante managed to stay hidden and disappeared before Mundus's forces could find him. Unfortunately, Virgil was only a little boy when Mundus's minions caged him inside the dungeons of Makai and kept burning him over and over again. Over time, the Demon King led Virgil to believe that it was actually Argosax and his followers who attacked their home and killed his mother. He poisoned the boy against humanity and led him to believe that his human side was weak. Mundus trained Virgil under his control to become his personal Dark Knight and helped him hone his devil's side as Nelo Angelo. Under the Demon King's control, Nelo Angelo became one of the most powerful servants. It was on Mundus's orders that Virgil started working with the White Rabbit in order to completely destroy the barrier that Sparta created between Makai and Earth. Even if Mundus is nowhere to be seen during the first season, you could just feel his influence because, in a way, Dante's deep-seated trauma and his refusal to confront his feelings is rooted from his experience of witnessing his mother being murdered by Mundus's demon. Not just that, even the White Rabbit's actions were a response to the oppression of the Demon King on the lower-level demon. It is the decisions that Mundus makes that motivated Vice President Baines to colonize Makai and slaughter any demons in his path. When Mundus finally fought the human army in Season 2, the damage had already been done. He then sent Virgil to take revenge on the Ouroboros, as Mundus had made him believe that it was Arius and his minions who killed Ava. Of course, it did not take long for him to find the reality of the situation after his reunion with Dante. Unfortunately, they could not stop Arius from raising Argosax, and so as a clever strategy, they decided to open up the rift to hell and push Argosax into Makai just so Mundus can take care of him. Well, it certainly did not take long for Mundus to attack the God of Chaos. After a brief battle, he absolutely annihilated both Argosax and Arius in one brutal move by ripping out the sorcerer's body from the God of Chaos's current form and weakening them. With Arius and Argosax gone, Dante and Virgil immediately went back to sealing the rift again, before Mundus got any ideas about invading Earth. But the demonic forces of the King of Hell surrounded the sons of Sparta, bringing the tension in Makai to a boiling point. That confrontation finally gave Virgil the chance to ask Mundus directly about Ava's death. When Mundus openly admitted that he had manipulated the truth in order to shape Virgil into his ultimate warrior, Dante realized how badly Virgil had been used as a pawn since his childhood, and told his brother that he wanted to stand beside him and help him get revenge. But Mundus revealed that he actually wanted the sons of Sparta to join him as he aimed to unite their strength and expand the horizons of Makai even further. Of course, neither Dante nor Virgil was willing to go along with that, as they had no interest in letting Mundus rule over both Makai and Earth. But then Mundus dropped another unexpected revelation. Despite everything that had happened, he claimed he held no hatred towards Sparta at all. Mundus went on to explain that Sparta never betrayed him out of hatred because in Sparta's eyes, Mundus was just turning into another Argosax, and because Mundus was too blinded by his own ambition to recognize it, Sparta decided to force him to confront what he had become. Rather than killing him outright, Sparta sealed Mundus away in Makai and took away his ability to open a path to Earth. It almost felt like Mundus believed admitting this truth would somehow convince Dante and Virgil to understand the situation from his perspective. But when that tactic also failed, he started tearing down their connection to Ava. Mundus dismissed her importance entirely and even justified her murder as a necessary step he had to take in order to destroy the human side of Dante and Virgil so they could fully embrace their Machian heritage. Of course, that strategy backfired horribly, because instead of turning the brothers against their humanity, it pushed them into open rebellion. In an iconic action sequence, Dante and Virgil immediately started cutting through Mundus's forces together. Once the battle was over, it was time to close the rift and return to Earth, but Virgil chose to remain behind in Makai instead of leaving with Dante. At first, it almost seemed like he was siding with Mundus, but that wasn't the reason at all. From the way the finale framed it, Virgil genuinely saw Makai as his true home, and he believed Mundus had no right to rule over it anymore. In Virgil's mind, staying behind in Makai was the only way he could gain enough power to eventually defeat Mundus. Even if Dante kept asking him to retreat back to Earth and later come back to face Mundus on their own terms, Virgil believed that if he returned with his brother, the human side of himself, that would hold him back from becoming ruthless enough to finish the job. Even if he agreed that Mundus cannot be allowed to invade Earth, he knew his brother would never let go. So Virgil had no choice but to impale Dante with his sword and toss him through the portal along with both pieces of Sparta's amulet. Interestingly, we never really find out the outcome of Virgil's confrontation with Mundus, which of course feels very intentional, as it seems like Devil May Cry is saving the real battle for Season 3. Having said that, it's time to discuss How is King Mundus portrayed in the overarching Devil May Cry franchise? In case you have not played the OG games, Mundus takes the form of a gigantic living statue resembling an aged but massively muscular man with a long beard and enormous feathered wing. His appearance strongly evokes mythological or religious gods like Zeus. In the center of his chest is a large circular hollow containing an eye-like core that glows when he fights in his godlike form. We see Mundus's horrifying true form only after Dante damages the statue to gradually reveal what is underneath. Beneath the divine exterior, Mundus is actually a grotesque mass of living flesh covered in writhing tissue, 3 gray-eyed eyeballs, and countless grasping hands emerging from his body. The contrast between his godlike outer appearance and his monstrous true nature reflects the deception at the core of his character. Mundus also frequently manifests as 3 glowing energy orbs crackling with power. In fact, he appears in this form several times throughout the series, particularly when communicating with Griffin, Trish, and during his encounter with Virgil in the demon world. Throughout the games, Mundus is portrayed as one of the purest embodiments of evil in the Devil May Cry universe, as he is completely ruthless and spares no show of compassion or empathy even toward the demons who serve him loyally. To Mundus, his followers are nothing more than disposable tools. Instead of rewarding loyalty, Mundus punishes weakness without hesitation and is not beyond using his opponent's emotional weakness as leverage to break their spirit. Mundus's methods are also deeply calculated. In his attempts to eliminate Dante and Virgil, he repeatedly sends stronger and stronger servants after them. He initially begins with lesser demons before escalating to powerful Black Knights and other creations by constantly refining his forces after each failure. However, what truly defines Mundus is his absolute intolerance for failure. Anyone who disappoints him is either discarded, punished, or outright destroyed. Loyalty means nothing to him if it does not produce result, thus making him a tyrant who rules entirely through fear and manipulation. Not just that, Mundus deeply despises the compassionate and selfless side of human nature, viewing emotions like love, empathy, and sacrifice as signs of weakness rather than strength, because to Mundus, emotional attachment only makes people vulnerable. In his worldview, having a heart is not a virtue, but a flaw, as it limits power and creates weakness, which is why he repeatedly tries to turn compassion into a weapon against his enemy. The entire lore of Mundus in the Devil May Cry game. As the Prince of Darkness of the overarching Devil May Cry franchise, Mundus ruled the demon world within the games for 2,000 years after overthrowing its previous ruler and establishing himself as king. After taking the throne, Mundus sought to expand his rule into the human world as well, bringing him into conflict with countless enemies. As one of the main antagonists of the franchise, let's discuss the stories of each game that Mundus appears in. Before Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening. So, like I just said, 2,000 years ago, the Devil Prince Mundus emerged from the depths of the demon world and rapidly rose to power. After building a massive army and gaining incredible strength by consuming the legendary Cliffoth fruit, he overthrew the previous demon king and claimed the throne for himself. But not long after taking power, Mundus faced a serious challenge from a demon god named Argosax, and eventually their conflict escalated into a devastating war that ended up splitting the demon world into 2 opposing territories, one that was ruled by Mundus and the other by Argosax. Sometime after the war, Mundus turned his attention toward the human world, intending to conquer it and rule both realms as a single empire. But his plans were stopped by Sparda, his own legendary demon knight. After awakening to a sudden sense of justice, Sparda rebelled against Mundus, defeated his armies almost single-handedly, sealed away the demon world, and closed one of the major gateways connecting it to Earth. Humiliated and enraged by the betrayal, Mundus chose to seek his revenge against Sparda's family, eventually sending his demons to attack Sparda's home. Just like in the Netflix show, those demons murdered Sparda's human wife Ava and forever shattered the lives of their twin sons, Dante and Virgil. Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening. As it turns out, in the secret ending of Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, when Virgil is left trapped in the demon world after his final battle with Dante, he meets Mundus, who watches him silently through his eerie 3-eyed form. Even if he was severely weakened and exhausted from the battle with his brother, Virgil challenged Mundus to a fight. The battle itself was never shown, but the outcome was pretty clear. Due to his weakened condition, Virgil was ultimately defeated by Mundus and later transformed into Nello Angelo, thus setting up his role in the events of the original Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry. In the original Devil May Cry game, we see Mundus trying to make a return to the human world by reopening the Hellgate beneath Mallet Island. As part of his plan, he initially sends Trish to manipulate and lure Dante to the island, hoping to kill him before he can interfere. Apparently, long before Dante's arrival, the people of Mallet Island had worshipped Mundus as a god under the name Pluto. According to local prophecy, he would one day return to the human world through the island itself. Inside the castle on Mallet Island, Dante can even find a massive statue depicting a younger form of Mundus standing in the main hall. But as the influence of the underworld spreads across the castle during the night, the building begins to shift and transform, and just like that, the statue mysteriously disappears along with the castle's changing layout. Having said that, Mundus first appears after Griffon's third battle with Dante. After he is badly wounded, Griffon begs Mundus to restore his strength so he can continue fighting, but Mundus coldly dismisses him and executes his loyal servant without hesitation, which is not surprising given how ruthless and unforgiving he truly is. Anyway, Mundus remained in the shadows until the final defeat of Nello Angelo. But after Virgil falls, Mundus speaks to Trish, making it clear that she already knows what he expects her to do next. Although Trish succeeds in luring Dante into a trap involving Nightmare, the plan ultimately fails. In response, the Demon King was enraged by her failure as Mundus personally appears and threatens to punish her. Later, Dante finally reaches Mundus's lair, a massive chapel-like throne room where the Devil Emperor waits for him. While sitting calmly upon his throne, Mundus reflects on the irony of once again facing a descendant of Sparta. But Dante fires back by pointing out the irony that Mundus is about to lose to another Sparta yet again. Little did he know that Mundus still had one final advantage after he captured Trish. He chose to exploit Dante's emotional attachment to her and brutally attacked him with 3 beams of red energy before mocking Dante for his compassion and calling it a weakness. However, as Mundus moves in to finish Dante off, Trish suddenly throws herself to sacrifice her life and save him. The Demon King was furious over this defiance and tried to kill Dante again, but this time Dante deflected the attack and angrily demanded Mundus to stop hiding and reveal his true form. And just like that, Mundus abandoned his massive marble-like appearance and unveiled his true body as an older, almost angelic-looking form. He then transports both himself and Dante into a strange pocket dimension to settle their conflict once and for all. Inside this void, Mundus remarked how he can see the same determination and spirit in Dante's eyes that once belonged to Sparta. But Dante was far more concerned to know why Mundus chose to create Trish in the image of his mother, Ava. This question prompted Mundus to dismiss Ava as nothing more than a worthless being and cruelly claim that he could create countless copies of her if he wished. Enraged by the insult, Dante ordered him to shut up, and the final battle between them began. As Mundus disappeared into the darkness of the dimension, Dante unleashed his devil trigger and took on the form he inherited from his father. During the battle that ensued, Dante managed to seriously wound Mundus, but the fight quickly turned even more brutal when Dante was knocked down into a massive pit of lava, with Mundus diving down after him. In the depths of the fiery arena, Mundus tried to crush Dante through his sheer overwhelming power by unleashing everything he had in an attempt to finally destroy Sparta's son. However, despite the odds, Dante endured the assault and eventually gained the upper hand after a long and exhausting fight. Now that he was in the agony of defeat, Mundus rose into the air screaming as his wings began to tear apart and fall away. At the same time, the pocket dimension around them started collapsing and fading into nothingness, seemingly dragging Mundus down with it as he disappeared. But just when it seemed like Mundus had finally been defeated, the Prince of Darkness suddenly returned as Mallet Island began collapsing around them. After he opened a smaller Hellgate in the island's sewers, the badly wounded Mundus confronted Dante one last time and swore to not let the Sparta son to leave the island alive. Of course, Dante refused to back down and instead declared that Mallet Island will instead become Mundus's grave. Now, although Mundus was severely weakened, he was still powerful enough to keep fighting, and as Dante attacked, pieces of Mundus's body began breaking away to gradually expose the monstrous true form hidden beneath his godlike appearance. Even so, Mundus continued mocking Dante by claiming how his strength was insignificant within the human world. At that moment, Trish suddenly returned and lent Dante her power, thus massively amplifying his abilities. After being empowered by Trish's energy, Dante unloaded a devastating barrage from his handgun, which overwhelmed Mundus and blasted him back into the underworld. As he was dragged back into the demon world, Mundus screamed how he would one day return to conquer the human world once and for all. Devil May Cry 2. So in the opening cutscene of Devil May Cry 2, we see a statue nearly identical to Mundus' younger, angelic-looking form briefly, and it appears while the narration retells part of Sparta's legend and his rebellion against the demon world. Devil May Cry 5 Visions of V. So in Devil May Cry 5, several flashbacks were shown through the memories of V that revealed what happened after Virgil lost his battle against Mundus. These memories were triggered when V reconnected with the demon familiars Griffon and Shadow. This flashback shows a defeated and badly wounded Virgil who was suspended helplessly, while Mundus mocked him for his failure. Not just that, Mundus also lashed out at Sparta, condemning him for mixing demon blood with humanity. But even in his broken state, Virgil insisted that he could still fight, thus refusing to give in completely. In response, Mundus decided to lift Virgil up and start the brutal process of transforming him into Nello Angelo. As he does, Mundus coldly declared that Virgil no longer needed a heart or an ego and would exist only as his servant. Last we know, he just started giving Virgil his new identity before the memory was abruptly cut off. Now, when V and Griffon encountered the powerful demon Nightmare, Griffon explained the creature's terrifying origins. According to him, Nightmare was originally created by Mundus, who wanted to forge the ultimate living weapon. In fact, Mundus even used his own blood during its creation in order to make the demon as powerful as possible. But the experiment succeeded far beyond what Mundus expected, as Nightmare became so overwhelmingly powerful that it actually possessed the ability to destroy the entire demon world itself. After realizing he had created something far too dangerous to control freely, Mundus quickly forced Nightmare into servitude and sealed away most of its true power in order to keep it contained. The transcendent demon physiology of the godlike demon King Mundus. As one of the most powerful and sovereign demons of Makai, Mundus is an entity far superior to ordinary demons. As we have already established, he is the absolute ruler of the demon world and is considered to be a near-divine being whose power surpasses that of almost all other infernal creatures. Mundus is also an extremely ancient and transcendent demonic being who was well into his prime 2,000 years ago when Sparta rebelled against him. Moreover, the Demon King is still alive and in great shape as of the 21st century, which means he is not dying of anything but old age. Given his immense physical supernatural strength, Mundus can easily punch through stone. Plus, he has overthrown the King of Demons before him to establish his own reign, and has also taken down Argosac. He even survived a battle with Sparta, which truly goes on to show his supernatural durability. Not just that, it has been suggested that King Mundus is almost omnipotent, which is one of the reasons why Sparta could not kill him and was forced to seal him away instead. The Demon King was also taking direct hits from Dante, who was wielding Sparta's true power for an extended period of time. Even while Mundus' statue shell had begun falling apart, he was generally unharmed by Dante, without the power of Sparta. It is no news that Mundus can also fly by the virtue of his wing. On another note, the Demon King is even a stronger practitioner of demonic magic, and is a highly accomplished sorcerer. But he still failed to break through Sparta's spell that divided the two worlds. However, his perfect control over demonic energy allowed him to unleash devastating attacks, as it helped him conjure a sword to wield in battle. In order to project his extremely powerful demonic energy, Mundus can fire red energy needles from his eyes, hands, or back that are strong enough to even hurt Dante. Not just that, by charging large amounts of energy into his third eye, Mundus can fire a powerful beam of white energy. But at the end of the day, he is a godlike being, which means he is strong enough to create a universe filled with stars and at least one planetoid. In fact, we have seen him create powerful demons because it was Mundus who created Trish, Nightmare, Leviathan, Blades, Assaults, and Frosts. Given that Mundus is also capable of suppressing memories and altering personalities in order to force them to serve him, the Demon King has enhanced the powers and abilities of the ones chosen to serve him. Mundus can also summon orbs for various purposes. Apparently, he has dark gray orbs that can generate a force field to protect him from attacks, along with smaller white ones that can fire white energy needles. The godlike Demon King can also send lightning from the sky at an enemy, or summon fireballs and a dragon made of magma from the ground that can spit fireballs, as well as being able to create magma pillars. He is almost impossible to defeat, and the only ones to ever establish this undoable feat were Sparta and Dante under the Devil May Cry gaming canon. Well, that brings us to the very end of this video. What do you guys think of Netflix's version of Mundus as compared to the game? Let us know about your thoughts and opinions in the comment box below.